Hi everybody, it's Jess, your go-to YouTube dance commentator, and we have another community division routine to take a look at. This is the squad from IDL New York 2026. I am very excited for this. I haven't seen it yet. Shout out to Doc Locke for reaching out and requesting me to take a look and review the way that I review other pro leagues within IDL and then other teams that we've seen as well. They got second place here, so I'm excited to touch on some strengths and areas of opportunity because second place is no easy feat by any means. Ranking at all or just performing in these spaces are such beautiful opportunities, and I love that we have so many people that we get to celebrate in that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Let's make the beat so you know it's gonna swim.
Okay, so we're gonna go from the top. I'm gonna slow it down, but before we do that, we are gonna look at the score sheet because the community division, 9 times out of 10, will be reviewed off of this rubric from the panel. Even though it's a different panel than the pro division, I believe they are trained under the same criteria. So some areas that I thought were really interesting, or ones that I absolutely see your group have strengths in, it would be spacing. That one I don't really say very often. Most teams will follow more on the complexity side or on the staging side, but kind of have that area of opportunity for spacing. I think you guys did a fantastic job on your spacing, which I think is it's a great position to be in, if you ask me, especially when you don't have a number line or anything of reference. You could tell the practice in that. I would say you guys projected the whole time, which I really appreciate. You matched your music effectively, where the music didn't swallow you as a group, nor did your movement overpower whatever music was happening. So those would be the two that I see as your strengths. Some areas of opportunity that I noticed here just off the first watch, it would be your musicality, specifically not in the song choices and how you're choosing to interpret them, but in order to create more complexity or variations within the songs themselves. And as we do the review, I'll kind of touch more on that. I would also say creativity, specifically through your transitions, as well as your movements that you choose to do on those particular tracks that you've chosen. So I would say the creativity would stem more so from as you work through the musicality opportunities, your creativity will naturally go a little bit higher too. And I would say one more area was probably be complexity of choreography. I do think we had some authenticity with some of our members, especially for the light feet section, because I know Doc Lock's there, and we'll touch on that whenever we get there. So those are just my first watch. Those are the things that stuck out to me. Let's do our review. So I'm going to go near 0.6. Guys, let's just say it's so fun that I get to do this. Okay, with permission too. It makes it really enjoyable. So we start with a level drop. I like the bass to help represent with that timing. I like the sunglasses there, fun prop usage. Then we end up creating, I'm going to call this a rotisserie chicken lift. I love the mess out of that so much. That's exactly what that reminded me of in a cool way. So I really love the beginning of this so much, because you end up having so many layers. It was polyrhythmic through delegation. There's so many that whole itemized sound in the track, justified by the center group having a feature in center, having those be connected and lift, creating a really nice legato complementary choice, as well as the dancers being lifted up top. Shows a lot of athleticism. I appreciate that. I like the send off with the ISO on it, with the build up of lifting up from the dancers from outside to inside is nice. Then we end up expanding the formation. They take the arm, swing it down. So we have a crump posture happening in the middle. I'm going to assume that is a crumper. Now, a note that I would give to this is that having one person justify a style versus a group, so whenever we get to the light feet section, we'll touch on that, a group justifying light feet compared to a soloist justifying crump, I will say you have a higher chance of getting authenticity score high whenever you choose to have people who authentically participate in the culture and community of said style doing it, in comparison to people who aren't a part of it, and you can kind of tell based on the framework and how they're executing the choreography. Once again, we'll touch on it when we get there. But in the case of quantity, really helps in that score as well. So an area of opportunity would be, instead of having a soloist, if there's others who are able to participate within the culture of crump within the team, being able to create more variance within that opportunity to bump up the authenticity score and the technical execution score because of quantity. Because as a soloist, you can only score so high by yourself whenever it's a group choreography competition, right? So that would be my area of opportunity there. So I really like the add-on coming in there. We punch it, bring it out in. Now with all of our choices, a lot of it's very extremity based. So I've noticed that, which does help with projection, but a lot of times it can not quite read as texturally or as creatively, because the accents or our choices that we're going off of are hitting parts of our music, which goes into the musicality category that I said was an area of opportunity. We're hitting it quite predictably, where we're hitting the sounds that are normally the priority of what we hear. And remember, I'm just one person, just one perspective. So whenever there's accents that are happening on the parts of the track that I know for myself and probably others, we are saturated in a perspective of how the sounds are to be integrated or to be justified. It does get harder to creatively variant that whenever you're choosing to go on the predicted sounds, if that makes sense. So I'll try to reword it in different ways as we go through, but I like the add-on from back to front. So the dynamics are really nice there. We have the windows just transition, but I would say our pocket of timing would be a really good opportunity where we would variant more into syncopation, the realm of syncopation, which we did end up seeing a little bit right here, which I really appreciate. Super cool. So an accent, I like the hair, and then we end up doing a body roll ripple from inside to outside, which is really nice. And then we end up accenting there. Everybody responds to it. Then it turns into another add-on, which is really cool with the redirections. I thought that was really nice. And then we end up swaying from high to low. Notice in this transition, we're catering to the same pocket of timing, meaning that we are just going on the whistle sound instead of creating more variance or more complex timing choices that can help in difficulty and in complexity in the transition. And I would say this would be one of the few spots where it is a bit unclear. It does give the impression we're dealing with 2 columns and then we have a windowed formation. Not quite clear the functionality of that thus far, but I'm curious to uncover that a little bit more. Accent in, so we end up rippling it around. Okay, I see. So it's looks like 2 columns. It turns into windows in the back, but they are technically 2 columns where it goes up and back. The ripple established that. I appreciate that. That was cool. And then we end up having feature in center of the respective group, create more of an up bounce styled ISO'd wave. So we have our tutting choices, which I appreciate this style choice in it. But if you're noticing here, a lot of sounds whenever they're integrated, that ta 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 ta, technically syncopated in comparison to the tempo, but it is one of those really profound sounds that do repeat in pattern. So it's a pattern that repeats within the track. That's what rhythm is. The choices that you're doing, it gives the impression as an area of opportunity of, once again, creating more opportunity outside of just different angles and deviation in your levels, thinking about not just doing the same thing, but creating more depth in the content itself, because you have the staging for it, right? So we end up having a fun little walk off there, which I thought was fine. And then once again, another area of opportunity for a creative way of going off in the transition. So end up rotating with 3-step turn. Pocket of timing, once again, could be an area of opportunity. We do the lift. I like the interruption of that is cool. Then we end up isolating, and then we knock for the shoulders. We go high and low high. Once again, on the more predictable parts of our track that we're hearing. And we drop it low. I'd say spacing could be a little bit better here, but remember what I said. You guys do very well on your spacing, specifically when you have everybody on stage. Really nice. I can tell the thoroughness in your practice. And because we had a bit of a gap right here in comparison to the gap here, this section with those who lifted the level, like the level being seen, a little bit tricky to really appreciate it with the staging choice that we were going for. Then we end up accenting with a switch off there. We turn out of it. The little feature moment was fun. I think a level deviation, either the feature being low and the members high or vice versa, because if you notice we all were up, then we had a feature deviate, which was cool. An area of staging opportunity, especially because you're not working with everybody on stage at this moment, would be that difference in our staging and opposition. And there was an opportunity for that there. I would say I love that lean back. That was cool. And then we ended up knocking, and we have more of a popping choice. I like the rotation or the switch off there. So we have a lot of 1-point features. I will say this is something that Arnell has touched on when he was going over the IDL rules rubric on his podcast, of when we have a lot of soloists or a lot of solo features, to create that complexity that can work against the team, in the sense of, if not everybody in the team is showcasing that complexity, then that complexity score doesn't have a lot of room to go super high, because it's a group competition, and having soloists justify things is not what the rubric is structured for. So that can help in complexity, sure, but also all of this, dealing with the majority of the quantity, that's going to be a heavier weight in your score comparison to the 1-point feature that is doing that complex thing. So that would be my area of opportunity. We do that Naruto dab run situation, right? So we end up going to the split. So I thought that was really cool. That was nice. And then we end up doing a lean, which I really thought it was fun. I like the torso choice on that. Not quite the cleanest choice there that we could have done, but also when you're going really individualized like that, an area that you could focus on whenever you are transitioning is making sure everybody's lower body is the exact same. So when everybody has more individuality in the upper body, if that's what's supposed to be happening, then that can look very structured and still clean and intentional. So we call that a structure dynamic. So it looks like we got a little bit of house. We got a shuffle step coming in there. The ball change was fun. And we ended up doing a reversal. Not everybody was doing that there. I would do some cartwheels. Not quite 100% successful there, so that's going to affect the cleanliness. But I do appreciate the athleticism that you were going for that. It was really nice. We set it back up. Notice that we are continuing to go more of a basic timing in our transitions. I've noticed that kind of across the board. So that's a huge area. The more I'm looking, the best area of opportunity is going to be adding complexity to the movements and to the transitions, not just to your features, but actually those who are contributing as part of the group, whoever is on stage, everybody taking ownership of those complex moments and opportunities. But still having your features feature in that way is cool too. So I like the levels on there. We end up knocking, and then we end up going, wah, wah. underwater squat, so we end up dropping down, down, down. So I like the kick out of that, but the punch is also nice. We rotate it to the inside. I like the speed change coming into this is really fun. We end up doing a heel twist. Instead of, were we doing a butterfly? Let's see. I'll sit it back. I like the redirection there. And then we travel it forward, do a little pin drop. Then we go into a lock-in. Here is your light feet section, which is really fun to see. So key elements that I normally look out for, especially if you're doing a style justification under the HHI structure, which isn't IDL. IDL is whatever style you choose to bring. You can kind of provide whatever kind of structure you want, but being mindful that just doing a move or two is not going to justify it. This is a whole full-blown section, which I really love. Now, the thing that I'm noticing within this is that we have members that are very fluent and familiar with the structure, the groove, the nuance that one can do in posture for light feet and the syncopation opportunities within that. Not everybody, unfortunately, because of the shot that we have, we're able to see everybody. Not everybody is showcasing that, so that's going to affect the cohesion of it, which will affect your cleanliness. It's going to affect the authenticity and technical execution score because, like I said, just because if one person does it really well or two people do it really well, but you have an entire group justifying it, the whole group is subject to that same standard, right? So being strong or being smart in how you supplement it is really fun. I like how you have the hat trick moment. We caught it. Great moment there. I'm glad it was caught, right? So the accents to send it through. If I'm being honest, the most complex section I've seen is the light feet section thus far. In the very beginning opener formation, I thought was really fun. So we have the small groups are also nice. Get your rev up. It's really cool. Yeah, come on. We have the tennis shoe trick, but I also will say it's because we only have one person engaging in that choice in comparison to passing off to somebody else, XYZ, whatever. That's why my note or my suggestion or recommendation to adding complexity to the masses, not just in the soloists, can help the general score significantly. So bring it in, and then drop it down. I was totally expecting a Jono clap, but we didn't. So I didn't like the accent. So it's a really nice way to transition to the next group. We bridge recover. The ball change is fun. Drop it down. Notice in this, though, we are choosing to go through predictable pockets of timing. So that's another, once again, area of opportunity, specifically in the transitions in the backs. That's really fun. Pushing it forward. And we are having our features happen in center, which is kind of the common denominator I've noticed with features are getting used here. Then we have our feature there, which was fun. And we ball change it again, this time facing a different direction, which I thought was fun. We have the poses there. I will say something too, you guys do a very good job on whenever there's a feature that's supposed to be featured, there's not a lot of conflicting focal points that distract me from who I need to be focusing on. So I think that's really good in terms of communication. How are you communicating to your audience and your panel where you want us to look? So I really appreciate that, and I would consider that a really good area of not area of opportunity because you're doing it. I think that's great. Pull it through, and then we end up knocking, which is also fun. And so we have different poses out of that. The staging was a bit unclear. I do know we have a small group happening downstage, stage right. Because everybody's existing on the same level, it's a bit difficult to know and see who's supposed to be featured. And everybody is, being very clear in the choices with the poses, but because we have some people have longer hair, which is absolutely fine. Notice that the range of the hair keeps going even though the body stops, so it does create, even though I said you guys do a really good job on focal points where it's easy for the audience to see, it can make the staging a little bit trickier because if everybody's on the same level, you have to supplement in some ways. So lack of movement versus movement is a really good way to do that. And because we're still having movement through hair or inanimate things that are outside of our control, it gets really tricky to see the focal point because of that, if that makes sense. So that would be an area there to be mindful of. So we end up having, we're dropping it like it's hot, aren't we? So it's fun. So this is a really nice way to create a lot of great energy and great projection, especially near the tail end. That'll help your stamina score. So we end up creating a nice interruption as we travel it down. I think some cleanliness in that section can really help make it more readable. The arms, we sway it. Then we have levels. We come up, The reversal was cool. The switch off there with the running position, timing of that. We got it on the tail end, but the preps, they started a little bit differently. And then we get it, travel it forward. They have quite a lot of unison here, syncopated, but it's also happening on the da-da, da-da, da-da. We're using unison to hit on the bases in comparison to supplementing further, creating more creative, complex, more depth-based staging choices for it if we're choosing to go in more predictable parts of our music. So I think that's something that I'm leaning on more. So we end up placing it away, so I thought that's fun. We end up inverting it. The crisscross is fun. Nice air time. Some of our dancers are not quite getting the legs up as much. So that can affect the stamina score there. This trick right here, it's a really cool trick, I will say. It's great for audience. It may not be the best for the judge panel. I don't believe they would score that towards any of your difficulty, towards your stylistic athleticism or towards complexity, because that doesn't derive of any style. It is an entity in which you lift somebody in the air. It coincides more with cheer and more of a gymnastics trick base, but it's not the same as doing a trick or a basket toss variant to a degree with breaking, right? So that would be the note there, that it's really cool and it helps in some categories, but not in all categories like a lot of times we think they are. So that would be just something to be mindful of when we choose to have that. I would say our staging or our spacings, particularly near the tail end, I think having this group either scoot in a little bit more or having this group scoot a little bit more out would allow for really nice equal spacing at the end. But I will say for everybody in the nooks and crannies of the in-between, they're doing a really good job maintaining that spacing. And I like the varied levels at the tail end. I loved the intro in the beginning, and I really like the light feet section. Out of all the styles, I do believe the light feet section had the most complexity within it. I will say there is a chance that by having that complexity, it allowed for us to really appreciate the dance, but it did leave an area of opportunity to showcase weaknesses on some dancers who may not be able to authentically represent those variants quite yet. So all in all, thoroughly enjoyed watching this. This is so nice to get to do a review of the squad. Shout out to Doc Locke for reaching out about this. And I absolutely appreciate Doc Locke in general. I mean, we've met in the just being connected through Light Feet. And so I'm really happy that I get to be here in this position to give flowers to teams, because it's no easy feat. Despite me, giving a lot of constructive feedback, it's still beautiful to celebrate the art of the fact that we got to be in a space and project and really showcase who we are as artists. And I thoroughly enjoy being a contributing factor to showing more people the beauty of that. So you guys know me, I know you, I'm Jess, and I will catch you guys on the flip side. Bye.